listening to It's All Good, Magic, Mysticism, and Earth Medicine. Check us out by visiting www.magicandmedicine.blogspot.com. I'm your host, Dr. Candace Nadine Green. And so, hello. Well, it is October. I was not going to record a show this week, but I just felt that I was just bubbling over and that I really needed to tell someone this. And to who else would I share my musings but with my wonderful, magical community here? So, the first thing, I've been going through a lot of October, fall actually is a very heightened sensitivity season for me. I tend to feel, there is already a lot going on in the air, in the atmosphere, and the veil is thinning as we get closer and closer to Samhain. So I tend to feel all of that. And this year, for some reason, I'm really feeling everything. And it's so interesting how things just seem to happen. Sometimes I don't know why, but they just do. So let me start by sharing a first happening with you. So, as you know, I'm an author as well as a mystic and an artist, and I'm a member of this group in Rhode Island, an authors nonprofit group where I get to get a lot of opportunities, a lot of shows and things like that, and I regularly participate in them. And this past weekend, the past 3 weeks, I've had one right after the other. Every weekend I was out. And that's another reason why I haven't had time to really sit down and think about a show that I wanted to record. So hence, that's why I didn't have a better show. I was also supposed to talk with a potential guest for the show, but I just haven't had time because I've been finishing up a book that just came out today, a children's book. By the way, it's called The Rainbow Ribbon. It's filled with lots of magic and fantasy for ages 8 to 10. And I've been doing the shows and preparing for the author events and the author shows. I'm also getting ready for some interviews and things like that. So someone who I used to know, who I knew since we were, since we were young. So I could say knee high to a golf club. That's how long I've known her. Well, she called me. I haven't spoken to her in 3 or 4 years, and she called me out of the blue. And I didn't really know why she called, because it wasn't like, hey, how are your kids? How's your husband? How's everything doing? It wasn't anything like that. What it was, oh, you're in the same organization that I'm a member of? And then, how did you get in there? Did you look it up? And at first, I'm like, why are they asking that? That organization has hundreds of people in it. Why asking that? I'm sure we live in a small state here in Rhode Island. I'm sure that you know someone else who's in there as well. But I didn't click until later. And then the person proceeded to go in to a very sensitive topic that they know is very sensitive to me and make me feel bad. Something from my past, and hurt me about it, reminding me of how the person treated me and how the person had said negative things about me. And I do have PTSD and major depressive mood disorder, for those of you who don't know, and acute anxiety. But I handle them well. I exercise, I'm writing, and I do all the things to take care of myself. So a lot of people when they meet me, they don't see that. I try to hide it sometimes. But that person knows I have that, and they triggered all of those old memories. So I've been up like in the air with emotions lately because of this person's actions, and because they had a nerve to say something so rude. It really affected me. It really affected me. And I shouldn't have let it, but it's that season, right? All these things come out in the fall, things die. And I had to sort of deal with that, and come to terms with the fact that this person has their own issues that they're dealing with because they haven't had any successes. And they've been talking about a book since we were in college that they were going to write, and never did. And this organization, it's for authors, published authors, people who already have books out there to be doing stuff. And anyway, so I have 5 books out, and I was feeling proud of myself because I've worked hard. Any of you who know my backstory know that it wasn't always easy. So that's one thing that happened, all in the same week, by the way. Another thing was, there's this boy at my son's school who's really, really disturbed. So he's sort of mainstreamed. But you know, this person, this child, I come into contact with them. Like when I see them, I get this dark feeling. And I know that the child's been mean to my son, mean to a couple of other people, but there's something there. And they have the home life's not all that great and yada yada, but it really affected me to the point when I went up to the school, to to have lunch with my son. I saw this child, and the dark, that energy that I got from that person, I said, oh my goodness, is this like another Craig Price in the making, or something like that? Those of you who don't know Craig Price, you should really look that up. You look it up if you want to. It's kind of dark and negative, and he started as a kid, and it's terrible. But that's what I was feeling. And I don't like to judge people or their future, but every single time I see that child, that energy, it comes over me, and I feel anxious and tense and apprehensive, like I did when I was teaching my last 3 years of teaching, when I was in an alternative high school, teaching at an alternative high school that was filled with gang members. And some of the kids, and they were in my classes, and I felt very tense and uptight. And what ended up happening was I ended up getting attacked my final year of teaching, and that was why it was my last year of teaching, because I can't go back into those situations. Those big kids in the high school, the big kids, it just makes me tense and nervous. But this kid is only 8 or 9, but I still feel all this darkness. And the way the child looks at me, he looks at my son, he never has anything nice to say to him. He looks at him. He looked at me once after school, and I just thought, I just could feel that energy. There's so much. The word that came to my mind was hatred. I don't know, maybe because it's fall, and during this season when the veil is thin, I am super hypersensitive. Normally I'm sensitive anyway, but this time of year I'm more so. I feel so much. One of the reasons why I love this season is because there is such feeling in the air that just have never been able to explain, but that it has been something that it causes me to do a whole lot of reflection and a whole lot of writing. It's also my most productive season as well. For some reason, I feel so great, and I'm outdoors and I'm biking, and it's just something that speaks to me. And I've always loved the season since I could remember. This season, and a very close second, is spring. I'm not a big fan of summer or winter. I don't do the extremes because it affects me in a way that I don't like when I'm outdoors. But fall and spring, I can be outdoors, and it affects me in a way that I like. I feel more in tune more. Just my season. And that's interesting because I was born in January, which is winter, dead of winter. So maybe that's just maybe in another life I was, uh, one of my former lives I was born, I lived during that season. I'm a very old soul. As there are many people who I've come into contact with, and I can sense right away that their life transitions, they're very young souls. They can be 90 years old, but they could be also young, a young soul. And me, I'm only 43, but I'm a very old soul. And the word wise comes to mind. Sometimes I don't think I'm wise, but in my past lives, I've experienced quite a deal. And sometimes I just know things without knowing them, without knowing why I know them. Not like right away. It's not something I studied or whatever. And sometimes I can tell people things about themselves that they wonder how I know. And I just know. That's just the way it's been, and that's the way it's always been. And that's just me. So that's my October musings. It's my rambling. Thank you for sitting and listening to my rambles. I really was not going to record, as I said, but I just had the urge to. I've also been taking so many pictures to savor of outdoors, the trees, and when I go on the bike path in the woods in the backyard, to savor them for my artwork. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but I'm probably going to, I've been working on creating magical landscape pictures, and I'll probably use some of the things that I see and try to incorporate them into my paintings, my drawings. And so I've just been driven and drawn to do that. So it's been really, really great. I also wanted to mention one more thing. I met a woman who bought 4 of my books, 4 or 5 of my books. I think it was 4. Right off the bat, I had a display at an event, and I know I shook her hand, and then she walked away, and I felt this overwhelming dizziness. I felt dizzy. Nothing was revealed to me or anything, but I'm usually off at these events, but I'm off. I turn myself off, but all the time, sometimes things are seep through. I guess I turn myself off in terms of mystical work. Like, I'm not going to read for a person right there, give them some intuitive reading, but I'm always open and receptive to information and things like that. So there was this overwhelming dizziness that I got from this woman, and then she walked away, and I sort of shook my head because there was another person behind her who wanted to talk to me. The woman came back probably 10 minutes later to tell me that a name, which was an unusual name that was in one of my books, was the name of someone. I think it was someone that she knew. Someone that for whom she brought the book, and she didn't know that name was in there. And she said, "Can you believe that?" I said, "There are no such things as coincidences. It's all synchronicity. There's a reason why you needed that book." And that was that. And I cease to be surprised when people tell me these things. On one level, I'm like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." And on another level, I'm like, "Okay." But I don't get surprised and or anything like that. I guess that's because it happens so much. I don't really get surprised. And I always try not to have my ego come in, and I fear that if ever my ego were to creep in, that I would lose all of this ability, and I did not want that. I like helping people, and I really enjoy this. I really enjoy this aspect of my life. I like being a vessel, and I like being in tune with nature and nature spirits and all of that. I enjoy that. So again, I went off on another tangent, but I do thank you for listening. As always, remember, you check me out, and please, I love feedback. And if you really would like to support this show, please, we're on Patreon, so please become a patron. I thank all those people, the new followers that we've had lately. It's been such a wonderful thing to see. I'm honored because I don't usually think that my shows are that great all the time. My earlier shows, when I was under the name of Awakened Path, those were great. But the Magic and Mystic, the Magic, the It's All Good podcast hasn't gotten up to that caliber yet. So I do thank you, and I do welcome and ask for your support. So, and $1 is great. Thank you. Send me. I love comments and I love questions. So you can you find all the information at magicandmedicine.blogspot.com, and magic is spelled with a K, MAGICK. Magicandmedicine.blogspot.com. Thanks again, everyone. Blessed be. Thank you for listening to It's All Good, Magic, Mysticism, and Earth Medicine. Visit us anytime at www.magicandmedicine.blogspot.com.